These are the final two communication patterns from Gottman's research that predict relationship failure with a 94% accuracy. In leadership, they are the silent killers of accountability and connection. Here's what changes everything. When you learn to recognize defensiveness and stonewalling in yourself and transform through connected leadership, you don't just prevent shutdown, you create breakthrough. In this series, we have explored the first two horsemen. We explored criticism. We learned how personal attacks disguised as feedback destroy psychological safety faster than any other leadership behavior. We also covered contempt, that subtle eye roll or superior tone that signals, I'm better than you. The innovation killer that makes people retreat into compliance. Today, we are tackling the final two horsemen, the ones that show up when emotions get high and stakes feel overwhelming. Defensiveness, the reflexive self protection that blocks accountability, and stonewalling, the shutdown response that creates disconnection just when connection matters the most. Here's why these matter so much in leadership. While criticism and contempt are attacks that hurt others, defensiveness and stonewalling are protective responses that hurt ourselves and our teams by cutting off the very conversations that could create breakthroughs. Here's where connected leadership transforms everything. When you learn to intercept these patterns using our three pillars, recognizing value, embodying grace, and conquering control, you can transform these defensive responses into connection opportunities. Defensiveness sounds like, that's not my fault. I didn't know, or immediately counterattacking when receiving feedback. It's the reflex move to protect our ego instead of engaging with the issue. A lot of people wonder why leaders fall into this. Well, when someone brings us a problem or gives us feedback, our brain interprets it as a threat to our competence, our authority, or our value as a leader. The defensive response kicks in before we can think, and there's a cost. Every time you get defensive, you're teaching your team that bringing you difficult information is unsafe. You're choosing ego protection over problem solving. As a connected leader, the antidote would be recognizing value, pillar one of the connected leadership framework. This becomes essential because defensiveness happens when we tie our worth to being right or being perfect. When you recognize your inherent value as a leader, feedback becomes information, not a threat to your identity. And here's how to transform defensiveness using our receive, perceive, and respond method. First, receive. Notice your impulse to explain, justify, or deflect. Your body will tell you tension in your chest, the urge to interrupt, that but wait feeling rising up. Next, perceive. Ask yourself, what is the fear that is driving this? Fear of being blamed or fear of losing respect? Remember, your value doesn't change based on this feedback. And finally, respond with ownership and partnership. Instead of, that's not my fault, try, you're right. I should have seen this coming. Help me understand what I missed so that we can prevent it next time. For your team, when you see defensiveness in others, this is where embodying grace, pillar two, matters the most. Instead of pushing harder, try, I'm not here to blame. I want to understand what's working so that we can solve this together. You are creating safety for the conversation to continue instead of shutting it down. Stonewalling is the shutdown response. It's going silent, withdrawing emotionally or physically, checking out when conversations get intense. It looks like disengagement, but it's actually overwhelm. This happens when our nervous system gets flooded during difficult conversations. Our brain literally can't process new information. Stonewalling isn't usually about not caring, it's about being unable to cope with the emotional intensity in that moment. And there's a cost. When leaders stonewall, teams feel abandoned in difficult moments. And when team members stonewall, leaders miss critical information and connection opportunities. This is where conquering control, pillar three, becomes crucial. Stonewalling happens when we're trying to control our emotional state or the outcome of the conversation, because the only control that you truly have is how you receive, perceive, and respond. Transform stonewalling using our method. First, receive. You want to notice the signs in yourself: shallow breathing, feeling overwhelmed, the urge to escape with a shutdown. Your nervous system is sending you data. Next, perceive. Is this overwhelm avoidance? What do I need right now to stay present and engaged? You can't control the intensity of the moment, but you can control how you navigate it. And finally, respond, creating intentional space instead of checking out. Try, this conversation is too important to rush through while I'm overwhelmed. Can we take a 10-minute break so that I can give you my full attention? For your team, when someone stonewalls, embodying grace means understanding this is often overwhelm, not defiance. Try, I can see this is a lot right now. Your perspective matters to me. When you're ready, I'd like to hear it. With this, you are creating safety for them to re engage instead of forcing a response. Here's how these four horsemen create a destructive spiral in teams. Someone gives us feedback using criticism. The receiver gets defensive. The feedback giver responds with contempt. That eye roll that says, here we go again. Everyone starts stonewalling because the conversation has become unsafe. You can use our method at any point in this cycle. You can also use our framework, your three pillars, to break the pattern. Recognize your value. You do not need to prove yourself through perfect communication. Embody grace. Everyone is doing their best with the tools and resources they have. Conquer control. Focus on what you can truly influence, which is how you receive, perceive, and respond. Think of it like the basketball pivot. Keep one foot planted in your connected leadership pillars while pivoting your approach towards connection instead of control. When you see defensiveness rising, slow down. When you notice stonewalling happening, create space. When contempt enters the room, return to curiosity. When criticism starts flying, redirect to specific behavior. You're now managing emotions, you're leading through awareness. The goal isn't that you never feel defensive or overwhelmed. The goal is to recognize these patterns quickly and respond with intention instead of reaction. Practice this week for defensiveness before responding to any feedback or challenge. Take one breath and remember pillar one, recognizing value. Ask, what if they're right? This simple question bypasses your ego and engages your growth mindset because your worth isn't tied to being perfect. For stonewalling, when you feel overwhelmed in a conversation, practice pillar three, conquering control, by saying, I want to give this my full attention. Can I have a moment to collect my thoughts? This transforms shutdown into intentional pausing. And for your team, this creates permission for these patterns using pillar two, which is embodying grace. Say, if anyone needs a moment during difficult conversations, just ask. We'd rather pause and engage fully than to push through and miss something important. Remember, these antidotes become automatic with every practice. Every time you choose accountability over defensiveness, you're living, recognizing value. Every time you choose grace over judgment, you're embodying grace. Every time you choose intentional response over reactive control, you are conquering control. Here's your challenge for next week. The final four horsemen awareness practice. Track your triggers. Notice what situations make you most likely to get defensive or shut down, and practice the antidotes. Use the receive, perceive, and respond method when you feel these patterns arising. Model the shift and let your team see you taking accountability instead of getting defensive. Ask for pauses instead of checking out. When do you struggle most with defensiveness in your leadership? What helps you stay engaged when conversations get overwhelming? How can you create safety for difficult conversations in your team? I want to hear from you. Which is harder for you, staying open when receiving difficult feedback or staying engaged when emotions get intense? What's one antidote you are committed to practicing this week? Share in the comments. These patterns are universal. Your insights will help other leaders recognize and transform them too. If this Four Horsemen series has given you new tools for difficult conversations, like this video. Subscribe and hit the bell. Next week, we are going to start something powerful. Do me a favor and share this with a leader who could also benefit from learning about these patterns. We spent a lot of time learning what destroys communication. Next, we are going to explore what builds unshakable connection. The Four Horsemen research shows us what destroys relationships, but connected leadership shows us what builds them. Defensiveness and stonewalling feel protective in the moment, but they actually make us more vulnerable by cutting off the conversations that could solve our problems. When you choose accountability over self protection, when you choose intentional engagement over emotional shutdown, you're not just communicating better, you are leading courageously. The only control you have is how you receive, perceive, and respond. Make every difficult conversation count. I look forward to seeing you on Monday.